Hello and good morning, everybody. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So we're going to go ahead and tag a few people in this before we get started. And there we go.
So, okay. And James Fitz. I need to text Ellen. Whoa, that's not what I meant to do. And we gotta go to Cracker Barrel. All right, Thomas here. What's up, sir? Why the hell? There we go.
Ooh, choking on my coffee.
That's not good.
All right, there we go. We are good. So today we're going to be going over the confrontation principle from Winning with People by John Maxwell. So caring for people should precede confronting people. So conflict is like cancer. Early detection increases the possibility of a healthy outcome. So ask yourself, do I care enough to confront the right way? So a lot of people really like to avoid confrontation at all costs, or you have the opposite reaction. There's the where there's an issue and you immediately attack it, but you attack it in the wrong way. So I struggled with this in the beginning because, like I've said in previous episodes, I have two parents with a high D-type personality, and anytime they saw something that they didn't like, it was basically an order given out, like, do not do this, or you need to do it this way. And I didn't really know the right way to do it. I just thought that was normal. But since I'm an S-type personality, I was like, oh, okay, that was scary, but okay, because those were my parents. So, but there is a right way to go about this. So there's a couple of things that are true about relationships. Conflict is unavoidable. Some people, depending on your personality type, you will try to avoid all conflict, which that's not a good thing to be doing either. So the only way to avoid conflict is to completely isolate yourself. Although John did mention, he's like, even if you do manage to isolate yourself, some people have been, psychology shows like you need communication with someone or something. And he used the example of the movie where the guy got into a plane crash and was deserted on the island and was talking to a volleyball. What movie was that? Castaway. So he's like, and in that instance, you're still going to have conflict too, because at one point he throws him in the ocean and then he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So the only way you're going to avoid it is if you're not around people at all. So the second one, confrontation is difficult. We fear being disliked, we fear hurting the other person's feelings, or we fear making the situation worse. So how do we handle conflict determines the success, our success in tough situations. So how do you handle conflict in your relationships? And did you know that conflict always compounds? And when confrontation is not quickly corrected quickly, it does get worse. So here's a couple of examples of strategies that people use when dealing with conflict. So win at all costs. It's quick, it's brutal, and it's very destructive. This was what I was used to with two of my parents, is this is how they did everything. Now, thankfully, I was a pretty good sport about some of it, at least with my mother, because I could at least have a conversation with my mother, but there was absolutely no conversation happening when I was talking with my dad, because it was very much, this is how it is. There is no other, you have no opinion. This is just how it is, which really created a large communication barrier when I was younger. And people still do this as adults, and you don't even realize, you think somebody's being difficult, but really the issue is actually you. So the next one, pretend it doesn't exist. So if you hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil, evil will not cease to exist. So just pretending it's not there actually makes it worse. And the reality is, if you keep putting something off, it's going to be worse. Any problem, that is. So whine about it. Whiners aren't winners, or winners are not whiners, and whiners are not winners. So playing the victim doesn't cure conflict, it just irritates everyone. Nobody likes a whiner, and there's only so much whining everybody can tolerate until everybody stops being around you completely. So keep score. People who keep a record of the wrongs can't ever start over fresh, and nobody can ever get even. Excuse me. Pulling ranks. So using position never really resolves conflict either. It merely postpones it. So some people might use a way like, well, I'm at a higher position than you, or I am your manager, you have to listen to me. That doesn't work. Also, if it's not even a reason either. Just because you're at a higher position than somebody does not always mean that you're right. Now, you may know how to do things in a certain order, but there's certain things, it's just you have to create an understanding with somebody else and make sure that you understand each other before you come to make a solution. So the white flag, quitting, so white flag it. So quitting is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So as soon as there's an issue, the person like throws in the flag and they're like, I'm out. I'm done. This is uncomfortable. I don't want to do this anymore. Which, if you have to deal with everything that way, you're definitely not going to get anything done. So none of these will help resolve the conflict in a healthy way either. So a roadmap for a healthy confrontation. I'm going to have Jeff, there's 6 steps to this. I'm going to have Jeff go over it. But the biggest thing with this chapter is you need to take the time to understand the other person and listen to them and just be able to come up to them with a cool head and say, look, this is the issue. And if there is an issue that arises, don't take more than 48 hours to address it. Because if you don't do that, you're waiting too long. And what you end up doing is you start creating this checklist of everything that they did, and then when you do go confront them, there's a huge list of issues, and you end up bringing a bunch of stuff from the past to what you're talking about now, when really the issue wasn't that big of an issue, but it was just a bunch of stuff compounded. You want to address the issues while they're fresh, and also while the person remembers it, because let's be honest, some people don't even realize what they did, and you need to address it right away and come up to them and be like, look, we need to talk about this, and then say what you need to say, and then let the other person comment. Give them the time to say something back. Now, some people might be upset. That's gonna happen. Some people might get defensive. But if you allow them to speak and maybe explain something, maybe a lot of times you may be, depending on your personality, they may have not meant it that way. And maybe you are in the wrong. But if you constantly come at people by saying, like, look, you did this to me, it may not be as bad as what you think. So you want to make sure you have that conversation with people. So, do you have your notes up?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere?
Okay, so we're on the confrontation principle. Caring for people should always precede confronting people. And a lot of people overlook this. I mean, if you look at it from a personality point of view, the D-type personality loves confrontation. They love conflict. So they're going to be the first to point it out. And really without, without even concern for the other person, hey, here's what's wrong, here's what you did wrong, here's what needs to happen, here's why it needs to happen. What's up?
Oh, I had to turn the air up. It's hot in here.
Oh, okay. So I've seen this happen a lot to, that personality type. That's the personality type I have. I didn't get along with people growing up. Couldn't understand why. And then it started coming out. The I-type personality, the inspirational, influencing, imaginative person, looks at conflict as there is no conflict, and there is no responsibility for any of their actions or any of their activities, because they're off to the next thing already, and they love people, and it really isn't going to matter one way or another. Now, high I's are usually high as a kite, or low as a snail, stuck to the ground. They're usually in one or the other, just because the way that they live their life and the speed at which they live their life. Constantly things get undone, forgotten, left, to another date, another time, and then they're just like, okay, it'll be cool, no problem, we're gonna have fun today. Yesterday was a disaster. There's a path of destruction behind them, but today's gonna be a great day because we're gonna go off. Typically what you see high I's do is they run off to the next thing. They will leave a conflict area. So they'll destroy something and then they'll go somewhere else thinking, okay, I'll make it better by going over here and helping over here. Not realizing that the conflict was, them, not the situation or the business or whatever. Conflict is difficult. We all fear being disliked, misunderstood, and rejected. So you have to realize conflict usually has to do with self-esteem. The next personality type is the S-type. The S-type, the sweet, sensitive, status quo, people who seek peace and people who seek resolution, keeping the calm, keeping everything done. This person will let things build and build and build, build and build until they explode or leave. They don't like confrontation at all. They're always trying to be like, no, it's not that bad. We can do it later. We can do it next time. Put it off, put it off, put it off. I don't want to be in the same room. I had people, I had a lot of people like this that were in a leadership position. And when we had to sit and make a decision, they wouldn't make a decision. Why? Because they didn't want to be wrong. They didn't want people to dislike them. They didn't want, they wanted everybody to win. And yes, it's usually set up that way, but sometimes you can't appease everybody. And you need to do what's right, not what's comfortable. And people don't like to do that. That's why it's a tough position to lead. So the S-type personality, which is 69% of the people, when it comes to conflict, will back down in the majority of cases. They'll back down. They'll not only back down, they'll mask, they'll patch, they'll try to figure out some other way to, change the subject. I've seen it done all different ways. And it's not just the S that does that, but in the majority of cases, that's how the S deals with it. The I-type will do the same thing, only they'll deal with it in a completely different way. They're like, hey, I brought you flowers because, we just destroyed your life, and think that everything's going to be good. They bought the flowers, they forgot to bring them. That's the I-type personality. Or they thought about buying the flowers, and they thought about forgetting them, so they didn't buy them, but they wanted to tell you that because they just like talking. And then you have the C-type personality. The C-type personality is the most likely one to hold grudges. There's a right way to do everything, and if you did it wrong, like to point out to a C-type that they did something wrong, you might as well just basically create the fight for life. It's not worth even sitting down and telling them. They're going to be, in a confrontation, they also completely avoid confrontation. When it's they're in the wrong. If you're in the wrong, they're the most likely and first ones to point it out that you're doing it wrong, you did it wrong, there's a better way, there's a faster way, there's a smarter way, there's a scientific way. These are the points, that they bring out. then they are the non-emotional until it's them. And when it's them, they're the most emotional. So you've got these different personality types that are going to see this completely different. What's up, Sean? They're going to see it completely different. And yes, age group has a lot to do with it. Yes, sex has a lot to do with it. You know, male versus female, 2 females, 2 males. That's going to happen. But overall, Gabby's here. Hello, hello. That's all going to happen. But you have to realize personalities are going to see conflict completely different. So here's something that I was taught about conflict a long time ago. Anytime you need to confront somebody with any information, especially in a team environment, direct sales, network marketing, real estate, insurance, I don't care what kind of sales team. If you're selling widgets and, you know, used toothpicks, don't ever sell used toothpicks, but you know what I mean. You want to do this. It's called the sandwich technique. The sandwich technique basically says you're going to compliment first. Hey, here's all the things you've done well. Before you even do that, Don Stills is here. So anytime you're going to identify conflict, the very first thing you want to do is you need to ask for permission. Hey, I need to bring something up that necessarily is not the happiest subject in the world. And you may not like it, but it's in your best interest. There's different ways to say it, you know. I need to tell you something that's really important that, you know, could help you a lot, but you're probably not going to love everything that I say. And I always preface it that way, so that way, you know, it's kind of like the warnings there and like, all right, I mean, almost always get permission. And I say almost always get permission because sometimes things need to be said where just timing's wrong, you know. Hey, I'm ready to hear that or I'm not. Typically people will come back later and be like, okay, I'm ready to hear it. So the sandwich technique basically says after you get permission is number 1, compliment. Hey, here's all the things you're doing well. People consistently need what? Reinforcement that things are going to be cool, that everything's going to be okay, that they're liked, they're loved, and they're listened to. Those are kind of like the 3 that I've found most often. Then you need to basically phrase whatever the conflict is where it's not a personal attack, it's a activity that's happened that is unfavorable. For instance, you know, something ridiculous like, hey, you left your cup on a table that's wood that leaves a ring and you're going to damage the table. I'm just, you know, making something up for the office that we've had happen. Best way, hey, you know, you've done great, you know, you're doing well here. Everybody likes you. You're getting paid a ton of money. But I have a question. We need to make sure, we just need to make sure that when we come in and we're leaving cups out, that we don't leave them on this table. Because we had to clean up blah, 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 blah. And, you know, it's messy, it damages the table, and then it affects all of our income, and we don't want that. Then you close with compliment. You close with a compliment. I know because you're good at, you know, what you do, and you're going to have a great week, and, you know, this is an end. So you're able to bring it up without it being kind of major. The other thing that you want to do is you can't, if you're changing voice inflection, because typically that's what happens. You know, you'll start out with, I need to talk to you about something, and, you know, you're already pissed, and you're already mad, and that's how the conflict starts. So if you come at somebody like that, what is their natural reaction? Most people's natural reaction is if you come at them strong, they come back stronger. But if you come at them level or below level of what's normal, it doesn't raise costs. So I've actually seen this in conflict resolution where, and I've done this before, where somebody will get mean, and what you do is you raise to their level and kind of talk right at their level, right at their tone, right at their everything, and then you drop back down, and they'll drop back down. It's hysterical. But here's the thing. You have to be in control of who you are to actually be able to do that. And I'll just forewarn this, out of swinging distance. Confront a person. So these are 6 steps to the roadmap for healthy confrontation. Confront a person only if you care for that person. That is, yes, correct and not correct. Because, I mean, there's some people who are on the team that you might not necessarily care that much for in a work setting. Because in a work setting, you really have no choice in who comes on your team, right? I mean, in a work setting, if the boss brings people on your team, you're like, I don't really care for this person. You necessarily won't care for everybody. You may be in a management position where you have to deal with this person regardless if you care for them or not. Because sometimes conflict is ugly, but sometimes it's necessary. Meet together ASAP. Never confront someone by email or text, face-to-face only. The reason you want face-to-face only when you're confronting somebody is putting it in writing is kind of like you're saying in permanence, hey, you do this always, and you can't use the word always. He talks about that here. 3, firsting understanding, not necessarily the argument. The person who gives an opinion before he understands is human. Okay. One who gives judgment before he understands is a fool. Outline the issue. Describe your perceptions. Tell how this makes you feel. Explain why it's important to resolve it. Ellen's here. What's up? We're supposed to be meeting here soon. I wanted to tell you we're going to meet at Cracker Barrel. Not just the place, because we're going to meet. I'm going to introduce you to a couple other people that you're going to want to meet. So, encourage response. 50% of the time, people don't realize there is a problem. Hey, did you even know this is happening? And people are like, and being able to say, hey, I realize most people don't even know this happened. Let's go back to leaving the cup on the table. Hey, I realize you might not even know this happened, but there was a cup left on the table. It ate through the, bottom. And some people are like, I didn't even know that. I just totally forgot. I was like, no problem. We just got to be on top of it, make sure the place looks good. 30% of them realize there is a problem, but didn't know that it was an issue. Oh, well, I guess I didn't think it was that big of an issue. And then 20% realized there was a problem, but didn't want to solve it. Well, I just don't care about tables, and certain people don't, again, go back to the personalities. Do you think the I-type personality cares about that? But when you say, hey, other people really care about that, so you're going to have people come in, walk by, look at this, and they're going to be like, oh, that's going to reflect badly on you. It'll make you look bad. You don't want that. I don't want that. And they're like, oh, I never even thought about that. 6, agree to an action, a plan of action. Clarify the issue, agree to solve the issue, concrete steps. Clarity is good. Hey, here's what I expect. Can we do this? Talk with statements instead of pointing fingers. Yeah, so if you point fingers, if you raise your voice, if you change your tone, all these things are going to create more conflict rather than less conflict. So it really takes a level-headed person, somebody who's in control of themselves, to be able to do it. That's why you never confront somebody when you're angry. You never confront somebody when you're mad. Most people are confronting people at the height of their anger. So, also doing is transferring their anger to the other person. Now the other person's mad. They're like, see, now we're both mad. The deadline for the completion of whatever we're doing, and then a commitment by both parties to solve the issue. Successful confrontation usually change both people, not just one. If you were to win a man to your cause, first convince him that you are on his side and his friend. Eleni's here. Brian's here. What's up? So that is conflict resolution by John Maxwell with Winning with People. But here's some questions to ask. What happens when confrontation doesn't go well? Sometimes you'll have to confront somebody on something and they're still upset, and, everything's going. And they'll kind of, based on their personality, how will they hold that against you? D-type's personality will hold it against you for a while, and then it depends on what goes on next. They can hold that grudge for a while, or they can just drop it. They are very one-sided or another. I-type personality won't remember the next time you meet them that you even had the conflict. The S-type personality tends to, especially if their feelings were hurt, they will hold that indefinitely until it's resolved, cared about. The person didn't say they were sorry. The person doesn't care about me. They create all these weird different scenarios in their head of why, this really wasn't about that issue. It really wasn't about the cup on the table. It was they don't like me because of this, and that. It's, again, self-esteem issue. The C-type personality was like, it wasn't my cup. It wasn't this, the physics of it, it wasn't really wet when I left it, so therefore it couldn't have been me. Everybody has their reasons. What usually motivates people to confront others? What usually motivates people to confront others? Typically, it's when it's damaging something, or it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds, and then they have to deal with it because it created a problem for them. It was something that was known for a long time. It was just eventually, you got to get to it. 4, what happens when people become overly emotional in a confrontation? Communication breaks down, and then nothing gets solved and nothing gets done. This actually happens quite often with people with low self-esteem. Lucy's here. Hello. And then 5, what happens when no action plan is created to resolve the confrontation? Usually you repeat the cycle and you're back at it again and back at it again. And obviously, if you keep going back at this conflict about this, then people start to assume there's something else going on. So, here's the problem. Here's what I think would be a good way to solve it. What do you think would be a good way to solve it? Let's agree upon solving it so that way we don't have this conflict ever again. And typically, that's what happens. If you can, everybody agree. Well, look, if everybody agrees and everybody's going to win out of the situation, there are no losers. You have to kind of set things up that way, and then usually the resolution will work out. Now, most of the time, the conflicts are created by people with low self-esteem. The conflicts are created by people who are unhappy, like what we've learned in previous chapters. And usually hurt people will hurt people. So if they're hurting, they're going to be conflicting and confrontational on everything that happens. Why me? Why me? Why me? So this is why, people are nuts. We're all nuts in our own way. We all have issues in our own way. Nobody here is perfect. We're all going to mess it up. We're all going to screw it up. We're all going to have an off day. Some people have an off day. Some people have an off week. Some people are just totally off. You meet them too. And you're going to have to deal with all of that and be able to identify it. Sometimes you have to identify it, isolate it, ignore it. It just kind of depends on what the situation is. Is it life or death? That's kind of, where you need to look at, is this a life or death thing? Is this ruining it for everybody else? Is it just an issue with one person? Because some people are really neat and some people are, not. And what I mean by neat, some people are neat and tidy and clean, and some people are disasters. Like everywhere they go, you can tell where, like if you wanted to find them, you wouldn't have to track them. You just follow all the stuff that they leave, drop, throw, damage, if you know one of these people. I mean, you can just follow them around. You know where they're at. You don't even need a tracker. You can just look in what direction they went because there's a line of damage behind them. Some people, you never see. I mean, they're very put together. So it's like, depending on the situation, does it make sense to create that confrontation, that argument on some of that? A lot of times it doesn't. But when it does, in a work setting where it's ruining morale or it's ruining other people's ability to work, if it's affecting tons of people, then you gotta get to it and get to it fast. So that's what I have for confrontation. Teams are interesting. Teams are difficult. That's the reason, like, people are like, oh my gosh, all you do is, just get a couple people and get paid. I'm like, no, actually you get paid the big money for dealing with all these people. I like the sandwich. Yeah, the sandwich technique is always best, compliment after you get permission. After you get permission. If you don't get permission and you use the sandwich technique, then you'll just be sitting there eating a sandwich because it's totally one-sided if you don't get permission. Most people, that's where they screw up. They don't get permission first to deal with the situation, and then they just sandwich the technique and think that's going to work. And I will tell you from lots of experience, that's usually not going to happen. So with that, happy Friday. What else, Brandy?
So if you guys would like our notes, we're taking notes on each chapter. If you would like those notes, we will email them to you. I will be posting a link in the comments below, and you can enter in your email to subscribe to that email list, and we can send those over to you. I still highly recommend that you buy the book because there's different examples in there that you're going to be able to get that we didn't go over today, and it's a really good book. So if you would like our notes, we could send those to you. Also, go follow our YouTube channel. So we're uploading each one of these videos to YouTube, and I don't know what's been going on the past couple of days, but internet has literally gone out. YouTube stopped working for a little while. YouTube's out to get me. we will catch up on these videos here shortly. So I'm almost done. So Bess, I'll have you able to upload yours here shortly. And so, but you guys could go follow that YouTube channel, and that way you could go back to some old books, or you can follow us along on there. So with that, happy Friday, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you guys Monday.